So this one has been ruminating, that's a big word, ruminating with me for a little while. And a lot of times when we're sitting back in the sound booth during service, sometimes it's hard to focus on the actual message with everything that's going on. But Christmas Eve, Tracy did his message, and he read this verse that just stuck with me. And sometimes when you're in church is when God speaks to you about things. And so he read this verse out of Luke, and he was talking about Zechariah. And the verse says, this is Luke 1, verse 20. It says, Zechariah said to the angel, well, first an angel came to him and said, Elizabeth was going to have a baby. And Zechariah responds with, how can I be sure this will happen? I am an old man now, and my wife is also well in years. And then the angel said, I am Gabriel. I stand here in the presence of God. It was he who sent me to bring you this good news. But now, since you didn't believe what I said, you will be silent and unable to speak until the child is born, for my words will certainly be fulfilled at the proper time. And when he read that, the word that came to me was, our words can stop or delay God's promises for you. And I'll just give you an example. If we go back to Numbers, when the Israelites were led out of Egypt, and through this time, through the wilderness, they were promised their own land. And as they're going, they're complaining and mumbling. And then it got to the point to where the spies went out and they came back and gave the report, and the people had unbelief. And then God said, because you have complained against me, I will give you the very thing I heard you say. You will all drop dead in this wilderness. And so they complained about, why did God bring us out here? We're going to die out here in the wilderness. And God said, because you have said that, that will happen to you. So everyone over the age of 20 did not make it into the promised land, except for Joshua and Caleb. And so they wandered in the desert for 40 years, 1 year for each day that the spies spied out the land. And so it was their kids that realized the promised land. And you ever heard people say, oh, so-and-so, I wish you were here because this is what she's prayed for, believed in for so long, and she's not here to see it. And that's what happens when we speak things over our promise that is of unbelief. Proverbs says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat of its fruit. And I used to always associate that with salvation, which is true, but you can speak life over your dreams, or you can speak death over your dreams. And so when we go back to Zechariah, God had given him a promise. And when you look at everything surrounding the prophecies of Jesus Christ, from the situation around his birth all the way up to his death and resurrection, everything had to happen at an exact time. And God could not allow that time to be delayed, that promise to be delayed, because everything is surrounded around the time Jesus was born, when he lived, when he died, when he resurrected. And so for Zechariah to speak unbelief, to cause the delay in that promise, would throw everything off, right? So John was born 6 months before Jesus, so he had to be born before Jesus. And so I say this applies to us. And it's amazing how our natural default is unbelief. When something is in front of us, our natural go-to default is, this can't be done. How is this going to happen? and we're surprised when it actually does happen. But we're not surprised when it doesn't happen. And so if it doesn't happen, we say, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. But why don't we transform our mind and our thinking to where our default is this is going to happen. And so when it does, we're not surprised. And when it doesn't, then we're surprised. I'm surprised this didn't happen. Right? And so I leave this with you. Just believe and watch what you say over what you're believing for. So if God has told you something, that you're supposed to be at a job, that you're supposed to be at a certain place, or something that God has told you you are to have, speak life over that as it is, right? Because God will provide it. And then when it happens, do not be surprised. And then you will have a testimony. Amen?